Hey guys, this is She Wolf Alchemy and this is Raz. So today it's just Raz. I have a co-host with me, good friend, therapist, and blogger Ashley Cole, who will be co-hosting with me today as Meek is on vacation right now. So today we're talking about trauma in relationships, how it affects relationships, and what they may look like. So Ms. Cole, you start us off.
Okay, so first, I think it's important to kind of just identify like what we mean when we're talking about trauma. Trauma is caused by either a major event or a sequence of events that basically happen to a person that are highly stressful. It's an emotional response to large events, to events that are usually considered to be very high stress type of events. Trauma is something that often changes people in a lot of ways because it can literally change their perspective of the world, how they view people around them, how they view their place in the world, how they respond to things. So there's so many things that can happen. And also, I want to note that there can be unresolved trauma from, childhood. And then there are things that can happen even in your adult life that can be traumatic experiences. So everything is not always from childhood. As we go through life, we can unfortunately experience events that create a trauma response.
Yeah, I think sometimes when people hear trauma, people are normally thinking about like, oh, I was in this huge natural disaster, or, there was this huge monumentous event that happened and I got hurt and that is trauma. And sometimes we don't think about how like, hey, daddy went to the store to get some milk and never came back. That's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That is trauma. It's an event that changes the way that you are able to cope going forth after that event happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that's how we are looking at it, because I speak to a lot of people in the field, but even in my personal life, where when I'm talking to them and they'll say something, and let me just be clear, very guys, I do this myself as well. It's a lot harder to catch yourself doing it. But we'll talk to people and they'll say these very traumatic things in like this monotone voice as if it's something minor. And you're like, hey, so let's back it up there. They did what, when, who, where, why. And sometimes because it's something that you have normalized in your life, you don't even realize how traumatic that thing was. And I know, again, this is something I know I've done a lot in my life where I was just very normal for me to go on autopilot. So when certain traumatic things happen, I was just like, oh, well, sweep that under the rug and keep going. And it wasn't until later where I'm just like, why is this a thing for me? Why is that a thing? And I start uncovering it, lifting up that rug and being like, oh, that's not a funny joke to tell people to break the ice. That was a very traumatic experience for you. Maybe we need to dissect that. Yeah, I'm just starting off icebreakers like, hey, so who else had a very traumatic childhood? Like, just started off that way. And one thing I will say, this is low-key off topic, I promise I'm gonna get back, guys, is I had a conversation with a colleague a while ago where we were talking about comedians. We're having a conversation about why it seems that a lot of comedians have heavy substance abuse problems. And like in the early 90s, late 90s, there was like a period of time where comedians were dying of drug overdose and suicide, like a lot, like back to back. And me and my colleague were talking about this, and it was like, it's so common for a lot of people to kind of cope with their trauma by making light of it, making fun of it, making it like, I need to get this out. So I need to talk about it, but I need to talk about it in a way that I won't break down crying. And it just translates into humor. If you've ever watched the show Friends, Chandler Bing, they kind of explore that kind of really well in the show, because he's someone that they always talk about how he always makes jokes, and then slowly they slip in stuff about his childhood and you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there. And throughout the show, he even jokes about it a lot and starts saying like things like, I'm definitely going to make things a joke and uncomfortable when I am nervous and scared. And this is just my childhood reaction. And they kind of just slip it in there. But this is like something that's very almost normalized at this point.
Definitely. I don't have anything to add. I'm sorry, but yes.
I say all that to say trauma is not always these huge momentous things. There's sometimes things that we're like, no, I think I got over it. And it's like, yeah, but did you in a healthy way? Or did we kind of just sweep that under the rug and then called it our sense of humor and made it a part of our personality?
100%. And that's the difference between things being like unresolved. And like you were saying earlier about like, once you kind of notice that something is going on, like you get that reaction at dinner where everyone's staring at you and you're like, oh snap, that wasn't normal. Like that's a good cue to go back and look at that and see what that's about for you. Because, I was a person who I think was reluctant to identify childhood trauma because it's like, I'm grown, I'm good, and you just don't think about that because you survived it. and to your point of like, it doesn't always have to be this big thing. Like, I think about, I remember reading a child called It when I was younger, because that came out when I was like a kid who was reading too much. And it was a whole series of books and it was just, goodness, my God, so much abuse and trauma and neglect. I mean, so much was going on in that man's life. And that's what we think of. So it's like, if your life wasn't that or that bad, if it wasn't, what was that movie? Precious. People are like, well, I'm good. I'm good.
And it's easy to say I'm good until like a situation happens that makes you have to think about that trauma or think about why you react a certain way. Going back to our topic though, like for me, relationships was one of those things that made me have to look at myself and be like, yo, what's wrong with you? Like, that's not a normal reaction. There has been at least 5 guys that have now stated very concerningly that is not a normal reaction. And we need to look into that. Why do we do that? Because like you said, like you can just go on about your life and just like, whatever that was, I was over it. I'm grown now, whatever. But for me, it was being in relationships, having to try to form an emotional bond with people where all of a sudden it started triggering me. And it starts triggering a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, that is the thing. What is that? Why am I having a traumatic response in this close relationship with someone that I love?
Yeah.
So yeah, it does not go away. And it's why we're so big on, hey, once you start recognizing something, it may be time to stop and just start doing some digging on, okay, where is that coming from? I need to investigate that.
Yeah. And that, I think that brings us to kind of identifying like triggers specifically. So yeah, triggers, it's such an easy word that gets kind of thrown around a lot, but really, it's hard to explain because it is what it is, exactly what it is. A trigger is like something that sets off those types of reaction, that sets off that traumatic response. And there are so many things that can be triggers depending on, what you're responding to, depending on what your trauma is linked to. It can be, the type of words that somebody uses. It can be, certain gestures and actions, smells, certain places. And so this can impact things, in relationships, especially if you're not aware of your own triggers. Like it's not, on the one hand, I did a SAMHSA training a few years ago, and they talk about a universal assumption of trauma, which is like, just assume everybody has some level of trauma because life. But all of their trainings basically are like, just treat people nicely and like, don't yell at them. And maybe they won't go off on you because they're triggered. But, in a relationship, in dating situations, in all these things, like you can't always know what someone else's triggers are, is what I should say. So it is when you know what your own stuff is, your triggers are, understand that, process through that, figure out what your triggers are, is my point. It's your responsibility to kind of know what your triggers are as you go through your process of healing, or as you start to identify these things. And especially if you're in a relationship, so that you can let your partner know, like, hey, when you, I don't know, when you have a cigarette, it reminds me of blah, blah, blah. And then I'm taking, I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah. I know some of the questions I like to suggest people to think about when they're trying to figure out their triggers. It's like, okay, think about what that event, whatever that thing was, okay? Let's say you are dating, right? And things are getting really close. And all of a sudden you feel the need to run away and back up. And you just like, I do not know what is happening. Things are going good. And you're like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what this is. Try to identify that feeling. Okay, did I panic because I felt unsafe? Did I panic because I felt uncared for? Did I panic because I felt trapped? Did I panic because getting close makes me feel like I'm losing control? Do I panic because I feel unheard, because I feel ignored, because I feel forgotten? These are the type of things I suggest people to ask. So identify that feeling. Is that feeling that scared you a feeling of judgment? Is that feeling of being manipulated? Is that a feeling of losing control? When you can identify your feelings, then you can start processing, okay, now why is that a feeling I get? And then you can kind of start backpedaling like, well, when's the last time I had a feeling like that and make me feel that way? Oh, okay, that might have been when, the last person I loved and really gave my heart to, things felt really good with them. And I started to feel like I didn't have control with them. And I thought it was okay not to have control. And then they broke my heart. So now I do not like that feeling of not having control. I feel more comfortable in relationships where I have control and they give me butterflies. And I don't feel in control when I have butterflies. And that's why I want to hurry up and leave. Like you can kind of start, and of course it's not that fast, but you can kind of start doing that backpedaling once you identify that feeling that made you kind of go red alert, red alert, red alert, red alert, panic, panic, leave.
Absolutely.
So actually, let me ask you though, are you willing to share what is one of your triggers and how you came to that conclusion? Okay, I'll start with one of mine.
I'll say, because I'm like, I feel like some of mine are like, if you're not nice to me, which is like normal, but go ahead.
No, so that example I kind of used earlier was like an example for me. This has happened multiple times. Like you could just fill in a person's name and it probably fits for them. But the specific person, I remember dating and not fully processing a lot of triggers, not fully processing some trauma. Some of it was from adulthood as well. Some of it was younger stuff, but some of it was from adulthood. And I was dating somebody and things were going good. But I kept getting randomly really anxious around them. And I couldn't figure out why. And I would have these moments of like things going really good. And me just in hindsight, unconsciously wanting to sabotage it. And I would just find a reason, like, let's just be honest. If you want to find a reason to end stuff with men, you can. Like, they always give you a reason. There's always one. Like, you don't have to look that hard. But this was like the third time I was just like, yeah, I need to find a reason. And it was very quick for me to find one. But I ended things. I didn't give this person a chance to say anything. I just was like, gone in a thief in a knife type stuff. And later I was hurt about it. Like I was crying about it. I was emotional and I was like, yo, you the one who left. Like, why are you mad at them? You left. And when I really, over the couple of months, I started to process it and I realized for me, I felt like I had no control with them. And a lot of my anxiety with him was that I like having a feeling of I knew how things were going to play out. And he would deviate from the plan of how I wanted things to play out in my head. And it made me nervous. And it made me really nervous because I didn't really know love as something. I knew love as control. Love had been shown to me as a control. I've talked about this in the podcast before, but I had a brother who died early, who died as a teenager. And when he died, I was only about 13 years old. And my parents went on lockdown. They went very, very strict on us or on me because I was the only girl. So anyways, but they went very, very strict. And so I was used to, and they were very loving and they were kind and they were amazing parents and they did amazing things in my childhood. But they also did not give me privacy because with my brother, it was a thing of he was out here doing stuff he ain't need to be doing. So when it came to me, it was they want to know what I was doing. My mom once went through my dressers, found my diary, and then told me the Holy Spirit told her. And I was like, the Holy Spirit told you to invade my anyway, we ain't gonna get into that. We're not, I promise.
Different day, different episode.
Different episode, okay? Once I know y'all faithful, then I'll go off on a rant on religion. But yeah, like I didn't have privacy growing up. And so it made me view love in a very restricted sense. And I did not know what love and freedom, which is how I view love now. I want my love to be, love should feel like freedom. If you love me, it should feel like freedom. You shouldn't try to capture me and hold me tight out of, I don't want you to let me go. No, trust that I love you enough that even when I'm free, I'm flying back to you. I'm not flying away from you. I'm flying with you. But that's not how I was shown love. And there's some other stuff that I don't want to go into, but there were some other things in my childhood that made me feel like love was very conditional. I had somebody in my life who made sure that they used their love as a reward system, where it was very, very clear to me that if I did not perform a certain way, they were going to take away their love. If I did not reach a certain standard, that they weren't going to love me the same amount. And I don't think that was necessarily what they were trying to do. And I also realized later that that's how love was shown to them. So that's what they thought love was. But which is why, just going back to parents quickly, it's so important that you have communication with your kids. It's so important that even your kids disappoint you, anger you, that you make sure you talk them through and let them know that, hey, I still love you. Because sometimes we do things and it sends signals to our kids that, oh, my mom only loves me when I get A's. When y'all do little shit like you got C's, I'm not talking to you. And you live in the same house with your child, not talking to them for weeks. You, the adult, grow up. Because you're sending a signal to your child that I only give love when I perform. And you don't want to do that. But yeah, so I had some of that going on as well, where it was made very clear to me, like, yeah, like we'll not talk to you for months if you do something I don't like. We'll literally have whole major life changes happening, will not inform you as punishment, like, and I make it clear to you that it's punishment type of thing. So for me, like it made me view love in that sense of this love is control. So for me, when I got in relationships, like that was the relationships I would stick in where I felt like I had more control. And so when I was dating people who I felt like, you on too much wild shit. Like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't like you and your freedom. Because if you love me, you wouldn't want freedom. You would want to just follow my code. And so I would get triggered. I would get triggered when I felt like you were doing something that I didn't feel in control of. And I would get anxious and I would get nervous, and it would make me really start to resent the person. It would make me really be like, you obviously don't love me, because if you love me, you will follow my A to Z plan, sir. You are on M and I thought we were on T, and I don't like it, so I need to leave you. But for me, that was a trigger, feeling like I was losing control, because it made me feel unsafe with my emotions. I didn't feel like my emotions can be safe in trusting you. I didn't believe love had a trust was you following my plan. You trust me. That was love. I didn't have to trust you. So for me, though, that for a long time, that was a trigger. And it's something that I had to really sit down with myself and really process that one day late into my 20s and realize, like, oh, no, this is a traumatic response. This is not normal. This is you passing on something that was done to you, so you think that it's okay, even though when it was happening to you, you knew that was wrong. What about you?
So much. No, not so much, but just even in what you just said, I'm just like, oh, I'm thinking about so many things. Because control, control is such a big thing for me. But, and I'm pretty sure it's a trauma response, but I can't think specifically of it like in relationship. Anyway, a trigger for me, I think, is feeling like abandoned or neglected. Like I'm very big, and some of it is like, oh yeah, that's just my love language. I just love quality time. But like, I mean, I be upset. Like you cancel plans, not making time, like it. And I still think those, and it's hard to like pinpoint it as a trigger for me, because it seems like something that's like, well, if you like, if you like someone, shouldn't you be making time for them anyway? And blah, blah, blah. But my feelings about it, like I think it's okay to have expectations for somebody, but the fact that like when they didn't meet those expectations, that I would be so hurt by that, just so crushed by it, is what makes it a thing for me. So, and that comes from, I mean, like, who knows, that comes from, a history of dating situations. It can come from, heck, my childhood. I really want to be, I'm someone who also, I don't like to look at issues that could be from my dad, because my dad was not present, and it upsets me to think that he has an impact on my life, even though he was not to be a part of it. But if I'm being honest, he's someone who never really went out of his way for me. He's someone who never, did. And that is something that if someone does that for me, like if someone, goes out of the way to get me a soda on their way to I am glowing.
Yeah.
But if you, an hour late, I'm disgusted. And it makes me feel like I'm only meant to be like convenient for you. And those are the things that will cause me to like stop seeing someone, stop, interacting, start backpedaling, or unfortunate, or the other side, hold on too tight. Has worked in the other way, where it just has caused me to hold on too tight, especially for someone that I really wanted something more with. Now, that's something that I feel like I've been, working on, and that's I've noticed over time, and have been working to kind of let go of it now that I've like figured out kind of where it comes from. But that's a big, that has always been a big trigger for me, that feeling like, I don't know, abandoned or neglected when someone doesn't respond to me in the way that I want them to, or doesn't make time for me in the way that I want them to.
There needs to be like a whole study on the fathers of the generation before us and the trauma they have caused, because I feel like I meet so many millennials with abandonment issues. And I'm just like, and for a lot of us, it goes back to our fathers. Some of us it's mothers, some of us it's, other stuff. But I feel like that is something I hear about all the freaking time, where it's just like, yeah, even fathers that were like somewhat semi-present though. Just with, the popping in and popping out, the deciding when they want to pop in and be a father, the deciding when they don't want to be the father. And this sometimes is from fathers that are living in the home. These stories I have heard about fathers in the home that were emotionally unavailable, and people still having very similar type issues of people with abandonment issues. That needs to be a whole study. Yeah. Somebody call SAMHSA, get a grant.
Because no, you're right. Because then it comes out in other ways, right? Because then you're interacting with other people who have, their types of issues. And that's what I was going to say too. It also, isn't just from childhood. Because when we enter into relationships, when we have things that are unresolved within us, I think we end up repeating certain patterns, and then we end up inflicting our own pain in a way,
Oh yeah. I mean, when you have a series of like, people always like to talk about how like millennials, the Generation Z, they're not commitment generations and they're not getting commitment. It was like, yeah, but like if they all grow up with abandonment issues, how are we all just collectively together decide like, yeah, no, forget that. Let's be, all of us are fighting, we're just now getting to a point where we're all coming together, agreeing like, hey, we we all need to do something about some of our mental health, about our mental health together. Like we might need to talk about the abandonment issues. So collectively we can be greater. But yeah, I agree, because it goes on in other ways. Like, how do we continue to build strong families and healthy communities? Not even families, just healthy communities, if everybody is carrying around all this like generational trauma.
Yeah.
Because here's another thing as well. I have also found, but like, this is an actual thing in psychology. I'm big on attachment styles. I know you guys have heard me talking about this before, but there is even a lot of books and research done on how certain attachment styles, right? Some unhealthy ones, like how people with like anxious attachment styles tend to attract partners to have fearful, avoidant attachment styles. So people who tend to be clingy and want to do whatever they need to try to keep that relationship tend to attract or be attracted to the people who are scared of relationships and will leave the relationship. Even when they're happy, they don't want to. And it creates this back and forth pool. But again, this goes back to like, okay, if we all have all this trauma that we're not addressing, let's talk about how that affects us later. And now we have this like whole generation of people where, yes, there are people that have secure attachment styles, but people with secure attachment styles, people that have healthy attachment styles that can bond healthily with another person, they're not attracted to fearful. They're not attracted. They're not trying to heal somebody that's an avoidant. They're not trying to deal with that. They want also another healthy attachment style. So then you have these three other styles that are unhealthy, all competing with each other.
Yeah.
Creating further dysfunctional unions, environments, communities.
Mm-hmm.
And then bringing children into that. And then we're pushing on the cycle to another generation.
Not the children being brought in.
Oh, gosh, yes. The children.
Okay, so you're making me think about some tweets that I saw earlier and was like posting about. Do you mind if I share them?
No, go ahead.
So the woman, she's talking about a conversation that she was having with friends about a guy that she liked, but she realized for herself that she was out of his league because she didn't want to pursue him. And her friends were like, oh, you fine, you bad, you got your own money, you blah, 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 blah. And so she went on to say, she said, here's the thing though, just because you look good and got a lot going on for yourself, that still doesn't mean you're in a league of the person you want. Everything isn't about looks or success. A lot of it is about healing and peace. He and I are both attractive. He and I are both successful, but he and I aren't in the same stage in our healing journey. He's already worked through a lot of issues I haven't even faced yet. And my emotional intelligence is what places us in different leagues. So she goes on to talk about like how, when you're younger, which I agree with, because I've said that before, like I think when we're younger, we can accept certain things because we're all just kind of bringing our mess in our 20s and we ain't figured nothing out yet. And that's young love. But then as we get older in our 30s, which this woman's in her 30s, she was like saying like, but after 30, it's like, come correct or come back later. I'm not saying I need to pull up to the table completely healed. There's no such thing. I'm just saying that I need to pull up when I'm sure that my unhealed, broken areas won't affect his wholeness. And then she said it takes a lot of maturity to admit that you want something, but you're not ready for it. I know that's the person I want to build with, but it's not time to build anything with any man right now. It's time to keep building myself. I'll pursue something with someone once I'm sure that aligning with them won't take away from the self-alignment I am currently working on. That's the one that So yeah, and she just, I just thought it was like a good, I mean, there's a few more tweets. I don't want to keep on reading them, but this other line, some seasons of healing must be weathered alone. And there's some people you can't fumble. Yeah, I think that's like,
I love that. I wish more women and men would start doing that and just admit to themselves instead of letting us waste time and figure it out for you. Like, I'm not ready for this. Okay, well,
And especially if you're in the, like, I've been in that space, right? Like of just knowing like, wow, like I figured some stuff out about me that I'm working on healing. And it's not that I couldn't date. I mean, I could, but it doesn't feel like it would it's like I want to meet someone in this version of myself, this version of myself that I'm working towards. Like, I want someone who's attracted to that.
Yeah.
Because there were people who were attracted to these other more unhealthy parts, and that's cute, but I'm not I'm not there anymore, and I want to attract what my healed parts are drawing in. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but I thought it was good.
No, I love that, because same, like, and I feel like I've been very open about this. I definitely have been like not the healthiest partner in a lot of relationships. But when I really sat down and was like, okay, I want to do something about this, I took myself out of the dating arena. Like, I took myself off apps. I, slowly backed off of whoever was still kind of lingering around. And I literally took out a season to be alone, because I agree with her statement of sometimes you have to there's some parts of your healing journey that need to be done alone. I wish we would promote that a little bit more. And I'll say it like this: that's not for everybody. There are some people who get married at 16, that's their partner for life, and doesn't mean they need to separate or anything like that. But for a lot of us, I do think that is the thing we need to do. I think it's easier to get distracted when you know that you got a whole bunch of stuff you need to heal, but you still bring in different partners in and out while you're trying to do that healing. You're going to slow down your progress. You're going to slow down your progress. And again, we all got different paths. Okay. So that's not for everybody. There are some people that may be your version of healing is this person entering your life. God bless you in that person. But I love how she explained it, where she could recognize, like, yes, we both fine. Yes, we both got our stuff together, but he is a fully mature male who's emotionally mature and capable, and I don't want to come into his life and mess up whatever he has going on, or even mess up what we could possibly have if I was at a better version of myself. Because that's a thing too, where you can't spin the block no more because you messed up so bad that first time.
Right.
Like, I'm huge on not spinning the block again. Like, I'm huge on that. Like, yo, we good. You good. Yeah, I now recognize that if we were both in a place of healing, that probably could have worked. But that first round, buddy.
Time and place is everything. And it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Some things you just do not need to circle back to.
You don't. You really don't. Even if everybody's mature and stuff now, there's certain wounds and there's certain bridges I personally believe that need to be burned, and you need to just stand on the bridge while it's burning, waving. Like, it's fine. Yeah. There's never needs to be another bridge here again.
And because, like she said, some people you just don't fumble, and some things are meant to be learning experience. I mean, it is just past. It is the past. Yeah. It's part of the experience of like getting to that better version of who you are. Who's gonna meet that person. It's all a part of it, right? I mean, it doesn't feel like that in the moment because we want who we want when we wanted them.
Can I just say I love that, and I'm gonna use that. Like, just anytime a past pops up, I'm like, why can't you just understand I was supposed to be a learning experience for you? Okay. Just that's what that was. I was just karma. Take that and accept it.
I mean, it's true. I mean, for a lot of us, especially, I know for me, and I'm sure you've experienced, for those of us who have been almost like healers in people's lives too, where even if that wasn't your goal, I have never in my life set out into a relationship, I'm gonna heal somebody. Lord. It does not interest me. But, being with me has been some people's peace and a balm for them, and has helped them grow in all these ways. And you taught me this and you whatever. Well, you racked me. I am depleted. But heck, I guess my work here is, I don't know. I think for me, yes, it was a learning experience for me in that I learned very young, and I'm thankful what it feels like when you are pouring way more into somebody or into a relationship than that person is pouring in. My goodness. But anyway, that's just a learning experience. And for him, heck, who knows what it was? But I think of it like, I helped, because the amount of time somebody has come back around and be like, oh, you really helped me with this, and I learned that, and blah, 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 blah. Of course, like, you know, in a healed state, I can be like, oh, okay, great. But back then it's like, well, nobody's trying to heal your...
All healing was done unintentionally, okay?
Right, like, oh, you need to grow up. Talk to your mama about them problems. Like, I didn't want to be a part of that. But whatever. But if we do, if we highlight, but even in saying that though, right? Like an experience, because trauma is at its core an experience that alters your perception, right? And how you go about and your body as well. People who grew up, and now you don't have to, you know, spend too much time on it, but we see a lot of people talking about like people who grew up with the single mother who did every daggone thing for them and was they everything. You know, we'll call it generational trauma. Community trauma. I don't know, but it's a problem. Because it impacts the way that there are people who are entering into relationships and expecting women to be these things for them. You know, we can even say people who have those more distant relationships, even with their fathers, where, you know, he comes to visit to take you shopping. You guys are not bonding. Maybe that leads to people who are more cool with having those less attached type of relationships, these relationships that are more based on like, well, he takes care of things and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's all.
But I think that goes beyond single parent households, because this is something that me and Neek talk about all the time. Me and Neek both grew up in 2-parent households, but we were still, and it might be the other way. And I don't know if this is a thing just about girl children, but both of us still had very big periods in our life where as the child, we were taking on a lot of things. You know, for her, she was the eldest child. So for her, it was just like, you know, also making sure her sister's hair were done, cooking and, you know, cleaning up and stuff like that to help out in the house. And then like growing up and feeling like that's what I have to fill in people's gaps. And me, the same thing, like I'm the youngest. All my siblings are way older than me. But in my household, somehow it became this thing where I filled in the gaps for everybody. So then I would go out and be in these relationships and doing the same thing. Well, in serious relationships, when I actually was like, okay, I'm going to open up my feelings, and was doing the same type of things because that's what I did for my brothers.
It's like, I love you now. Press play on domestic life.
Yes, because I love you now, I feel the need. But also for me, that also went back with control though, because if you need me for everything, it's very easy for me to stay in control. So you know, full circle there.
Right. So let's talk about how it can impact relationships and dating. So one of the things is perceiving things as a threat that may not be a threat. Feeling unsafe, like there are, you know, things that can make a person feel unsafe and cause them to lash out in different ways. Perceiving, you know, communication that you don't intend to be harmful as a threat. This is one of those things too that can also tie back into childhood trauma. And I was talking about this recently. I was like talking about the comparisons of like parenting and how it can lead to how someone behaves in a relationship. Like if you are used to growing up in an environment where, you know, when you didn't do the dishes or when chores or when, you know, when you weren't doing whatever it was that you were supposed to be doing, that you got kind of like what you were talking about, Chris, like you get like an attitude, or you get, you know, someone tearing down your self-esteem and making all these crazy comments towards you because you forgot to do the dishes. Like, how can that not translate over into you not knowing how to have like a decent disagreement or argument with a partner that doesn't turn into this unhealthy type of communication?
Fight or flight.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, when we instill in young people too, of like, well, I have to inflict pain upon you in order for you to understand the lesson.
Yeah.
You know, people grow up and do that as adults to their partners. You know, you hurt me. And so I have to make sure that you know that what you did was wrong by whatever. Hurting you. Yeah. Whether that's, I'm going to give you the silent treatment, because listen, silent treatment is the worst thing you can do to me. I am not with it. And that goes into those triggers, right? Because now I feel abandoned. How dare you block me because you're mad? If you never want to speak to me again, go ahead and block me. because I promise we'll never speak again.
Can I just say briefly, and we can cut this out if you want me to, but like it's reminding about you dated a guy who was like the male version of me, and I kept trying to convince you that it was okay.
And I'm like, girl, not like I felt chaotic in that.
I was trying my hardest to convince you it's okay. I'm like, no, I do that all the time. I definitely block every time I get mad. I definitely just get up and leave in middle of conversations and did not talk to the person for a week to let them know their lesson. And you was like, I feel like we also need to talk about you.
Girl, like now that we are both far beyond those types of conversations we were having then, like, yeah, when I think, I'm like, how come you did this to people? Like,
I did. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because I was really ridiculous because you definitely was going through it with this man. And I was just up here like, no, I get it. Like, I was on his side. Like, yeah, I don't understand why you're confused.
Let's talk about it. Let's whatever, honey. That man, I can't. Because that's how I felt, like abandoned, right? Because it felt like I thought we were doing a thing. Like if we're doing this thing, then you work on stuff with me. You don't just leave. You know, I'm okay with you communicating that you don't want to talk right now, or whatever. But this mug would just,
he would just get up and leave.
He would just leave.
So a little background, guys. Me and Ashley used to work together, but we also used to live by each other. We used to have each other's house keys and everything. And during this time, you're dating that guy, he would leave and I would like come over with like wine and we would be talking and he was just like, yeah, he left and blah, blah, blah. But oh yeah, it's fine. You give him a week. He's going to come back. It's fine. So anyway, like he's going to block you, but he has a burner account and he's going to check your page from the burner account. I was just talking like this was a normal thing. And you used to just be like, this is chaotic and I don't like this. I don't understand why you understand this language, but okay.
The pain. But I will say, there are so many situations that I've had that it was like the extreme version enough of something that I was able to like be like, okay, going forward, this is the rule.
Yeah.
Because the way that I felt, confused and just like that feeling of confusion and like that, like I said, it felt chaotic. It's a red flag. I don't want to feel it. The minute I'm like, I don't know what's going on, I'm out.
Word.
Or I'm sorry, I'm communicating that. And then if it is not fixed, I'm out. I'll say that because I did try with the next person I was dating, but because I remember the first time I was like, look, sir, I'm feeling confused. I'm gonna tell you what that means for me.
I'm sorry, you were just talking. I was just like, I was really rooting for her to just like stick through some BS before because it was my own BS.
Girl, I therapy is a great thing.
I was rooting for him because I completely got what he was doing. I was like, yeah, that's what you do. But it goes back to like perceived threats and feeling unsafe because of like, you made me mad. I don't have the communication skills to verbalize that I'm hurt because in my world, saying I'm hurt is admitting defeat and people will use that against you. So I am going to hurt you first by leaving you. And it's not even for a lot of times, it's not even like I want to permanently hurt you. I want to blah, blah, blah. It is, I need to protect myself. Because of the perceived threats, I believe that you are intentionally trying to hurt me. And so now I have to up the ante. And again, a lot of times we're not thinking about this consciously, but it goes back to why you have to heal that trauma within yourself, because that's how it can come out in these relationships. And when you're in a relationship, when you're trying to build with a person, we can't be taking everything as a perceived threat. Also, you have to check yourself on why do I think everything is, why is every time we have a miscommunication or a slight, why do I feel the need to up the ante on you? What is that about you?
Because it also creates a barrier, and this is the one of the sad things about trauma or unresolved trauma is that it's isolating. It's so isolating, because that just creates more of a barrier between you and somebody else. It's isolating. That is one of the saddest parts about trauma, though. It is isolating because we do so much to protect ourselves that we end up pushing people away as a result of that. And then,
not only is it isolating, and we now, because a lot of times you have this back and forth of like, I want to be loved, but I'm scared of love. And how do I get love if I'm scared of love? You can't get it. You can't, because even when you come close, that fear is going to tell you to run. That fear is going to tell you self-sabotage. That fear is going to make you perceive certain things as threats that really aren't threats. And now your trauma is now impacting this other person who came in just wanting to love, just wanted to be there, and now they're walking away from this situation like, you know what?
Now we do
Never
not.
again. I am not dating Aquarius. That's what I took from this situation. Like, that's what we're walking away with.
The other bad circumstance that can come out is trauma bonding. The people who bond through trauma.
That's my area. Okay, go ahead.
That's a whole other thing, because people get into these very they get stuck in these toxic relationships that were formed through trauma bonding, right? We've been through so much together, or I had a crap life and so did he, so we understand each other, so we just have to be together. Like, you do not, I want you to know today, you do not, just because someone else will get you, okay? You know, you can, and maybe some of the things that you want someone to get that are these unhealthy parts, maybe those are parts that need to be healed and worked on, and it's not meant for somebody to get because maybe those things need to be healed.
I think we definitely sometimes confuse someone understanding our pain with someone building with us. And just like you were saying, like, just because someone understands their pain does not mean they're trying to help heal it, does not mean they're trying to build it. Sometimes y'all just building upon that page. Sometimes y'all just holding each other stagnant in that hurt. I have definitely trauma bonded a lot. A lot. I'm having a moment. A lot. But not only even in just romantic relationships, but in friendships as well. So I get it. There is something that feels special about somebody getting the darkest parts of you, especially when you feel like that's parts you normally have to hide. And then you meet somebody and they peep game and you peep game and you're like, oh, I don't have to hide this bad side. This feels free. This feels fun, blah, blah, blah. But you have to recognize, like, okay, in that freedom and from, do you feel yourself backsliding on things you already had progress on in regards to your healing? And that freedom and fun, like, it's one thing, like, ha, we can both joke about this and we both get in. We're not going to stare at each other weirdly. But like, is that keeping ha-ha-haing it instead of looking at this as a serious matter we need to get over? Is that holding in bondage to that? Because those are questions I literally had to ask myself about certain trauma bonds that I had, where for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is my most intense friendship. This is my most intense relationship, but it wasn't healthy. And then when I wanted to be healthy, I recognized the distance that grew between us. And it was like, I had to make a choice of, well, either I want to keep being healthier and letting go of certain things and calling myself out on my own bullshit, or I was going to just sit in the bullshit with them and then know that I can do better and not. And here's the thing also about trauma bonding, it always ends up in toxicity. It's not even just like, okay, now we're both being toxic together, yay, fun. When you're both toxic, guess what? It creates a toxic cycle of arguing, of drama, of BS, of, it's always going to come around. Even if you're like, no, we're in this fun part, I guarantee you, if it is a toxic trauma bond, trust me, that toxic level of intensity is going to come around with fighting, arguing, with depression, with all. It's a part of that cycle. It's a part of that bond. You can't have a trauma bond with nothing but happiness in y'all trauma bonding. It doesn't work like that.
That's like, it makes me think of that old crazy song, Eminem song, that when a tornado meets a volcano. And people say that like it's cute and it's something that you should want to be with somebody.
Girl, that was like a quote under a picture of me in the sky on Facebook.
I know. And I remember there was like a
we was gonna get it tattooed.
Oh God. See, no.
I know. It's okay. I had a praying grandma. I had some people that was deep into meditation. It's okay. It's fine. We're out of that area in our life now.
Like that is so just because like I've had a toxic, chaotic type of relationship like that. And again, one of those very young things.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to have had it and got it out my way because I was like, that ain't it.
Yeah.
but that relationship and then the short stint is why I have been single a lot of my adult life. Because I just from trauma. Anyway, that relationship gave me trauma. I also can understand, like, you know, it also gives me an understanding of certain things, like having had the experience of like, no, I get what it's like when you think that this is love.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. But when you come out of that, you know, all that's on the other side, you're like, what? You mean we would just have a conversation without shouting at one another? Like, I like that better.
But the biggest takeaway, I think, is though, even with all of this, even if you have trauma, you can heal from that. And that, I think, is the silver lining of all of it. Just because you have trauma doesn't mean like, oh, you're undateable, that you need to just sit and be single for the rest of eternity. Like, no, there is healing in that. And you can go on to have happy, safe, consistent, peaceful relationships.
Absolutely. I think, yes, we always have to remember that while trauma can change us, so can healing. So we can have experiences where we feel safe and we can grow
and there's happiness in there.
Yes.
So some of the ways that we can do that is kind of like we always said. I feel like in every episode we have to like give this advice, like sitting in with your feelings. And the reason why we always bring it up is because it's something that people don't do. And we really got to stop not doing that. And what I mean by that is like, go up to people and ask them like, what are you feeling right now? And a lot of times people will be like, I don't know. Even in therapy, people will call and schedule a therapy appointment and be like, I'm going through so much and I'm losing my mind. I need to have a session. And then you'll get to a session. You're like, so what are we feeling? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like, okay, on the phone, there was a lot of emotions. So we are definitely feeling something. What you're finding is people aren't checking in with themselves. People are living on autopilot. People are sweeping things under the rug. And in order to kind of get to that point of healing, you have to start feeling your feelings. That's the very first step of this. Understanding what is going on inside your mouth. What are you feeling? Being honest with yourself about that. Also, not immediately pushing those feelings to the back once they come up. Even the bad ones, they serve a purpose.
Yes. And a part of this, because I think people think it's so silly, like, well, what is the point of like feeling stuff and silly? But your body literally has to go through a process to heal itself. And a part of that is feeling those feelings, even those bad ones. When we experience something traumatic, scary, stressful, our body goes through a thing to try to keep us safe. And it's a whole cycle, and it has to complete that cycle to begin the healing. And sometimes maybe you have to sit in those feelings a few times, but it is part of your body going through that process. And every time you try to self-medicate or you try to, jump into something else or basically outsource instead of sitting in your feelings, you're not allowing yourself to go through that process. And of course, sometimes sitting through those feelings can get to, if you notice it getting so intense, now you're depressed, seek help. But ignoring it is not going to get you there.
Matter of fact, one of my favorite songs is by Solange, Cranes in the Sky. And that's what that whole song is about. I try to write it away. I try to sex it away. I try to shop it away. That's her. That whole song is her talking about how she tried to do everything but sit in her feelings and process them. And she talks about, I did everything else. And then at the end of the day, I still had to sit in my feelings and process them to get to that point of healing. Yeah. But when you read the lyrics, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Trying to do everything else to avoid the fact that I have to sit in my feelings and I need to process them. Like Ashley said, another thing is, yes, you can go to therapy, okay? And here's the thing, therapists all over the world conduct therapy differently, okay? So I have met people who have said, like, I don't want to sit in front of a white guy in a cardigan and talk to him about my dreams. That's not what it's going to be like with everybody. You can go out here and find therapists that you vibe with. I always recommend going to therapists that let you have a consultation first. Usually consultation should be free, 15 minutes. Talk to them. Get a vibe of how they usually conduct therapy. See if that's what you want. Tell them, look, this is what's going on. See how they respond to that. Do you like the energy? Do you like that? And here's the thing, once you go, you can stop. You can be like, this ain't the right person, and go to a new one. Mm-hmm. And there's so many awesome therapists out here with so many different therapy styles. Not everything is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is big. In case you guys are wondering, Ashley's laughing because I have my own personal thing with CBT, but I'm just saying it's not always CBT. CBT is really big on, feelings, thoughts. Your feelings affect your thoughts, and your thoughts affect your actions. So we change the way you think about things. It will change how you feel about things. If you change how you feel about things, it will change how you react to things. And that's one form of therapy, but it's not all like that. You have some therapists out here who are actually therapists / astrologers that will pull up your birth chart and be like, that's a lot of Scorpio. All right. We let's talk about your mom. I feel like there's gonna be some mom shit. Like there are people who do that. But there's also like narrative style where the people are really big on letting you retell your story. There's also ACT, where it's big on acceptance, teach you how to accept the things that you can't change. There's all types of therapy. There are therapists that come in with their cardigan, they smile and they're uptight and whatever. But there's also therapists that will sit there and like do a whole rap duo with you if that's how you feel the need to express yourself. Okay, there's different types of therapists out here, especially now with telemental health, where you can do it virtually. Like, it is allowing clients a lot of freedom to find more therapists who better suit their needs, better suit their personality. So that is something to take into consideration as well when we're talking about that. But also things like meditation. And I feel like people are tired of hearing about meditation too. But it works. It works. It does work. One, meditation is big on having you focus on the here and the now and bringing you back to the present. And a lot of times when people are dealing with anxiety, it's usually their minds are either anxious about the future or anxious about the past. And usually it's not a here and now type of thing. And meditation allows you to be present. But not only that, when we're talking about meditation and you're including deep breaths, that actually does something to your body, like your actual nervous system, to calm your actual nervous system down. Like, that's not just like spiritual woo-woo. Like, no, that's science. Literal science, yes.
I have to explain it to people because usually when we're having these types of reactions, it's like our mind and our bodies are kind of just out of sync when we start panicking, getting overworked about things, especially. And so taking that time to pause and breathe just allows your body and your mind time to catch up with each other so you can actually think clearly. Because when we're responding to stress and we're having those reactions, like you were saying, it's our fight or flight response. Mm-hmm. Our bodies don't yet know the difference between us, running from danger and us getting in trouble at work or something. And so taking that time to just, I'm here mm-hmm. in this moment and allowing that to happen. And that's why meditation is important, because it allows you to practice. Yes. You are practicing how to do it so that when you need it, it is there. It is like second nature, how to tap into your body.
Yeah. And when we are talking about healing this, and we're talking about doing things like meditation, and we're talking about things like going to therapy, sitting with our feelings, we're talking about basically teaching you how to cultivate emotional safety within yourself, because you have to have that first before you can have that with somebody else. And a lot of times what happens when we have unhealed trauma and we bring it into relationships, we're bringing our own baggage and our own confusion that we have not resolved within ourselves. And if it has not resolved in ourselves, that means we don't have any safety within ourselves. When I was doing this process myself, I had to recognize that I did not feel safe within me either. I was always on high alert. I was always on panic mode. I was always distressed and so forth. And I had to recognize that, okay, I had to learn what emotional safety meant and how to get that within myself. And when you heal your trauma, that is what's going to come. that is what is going to be there. You are going to want open communication because you recognize that communication is a big part of bonding with another person. Honest communication, open communication, you're going to recognize that being able to feel like I can show up fully, meaning I don't have to hide certain parts of myself away from you. I don't have to make certain parts of me smaller or bigger, because that is usually also a trauma response. So once I heal that and I feel I can show up authentically, then I'm now also attracting people who like who my authentic self is. And so I don't have to try to put myself into any type of compartment or cut away certain parts of me, because I'm already that person, and that person's already attracted the people that's going to like that person.
To add to that, you know what it feels like when you're safe by yourself. You know what you feel like you are emotionally regulated. It is much easier for you to notice when something is knocking you off of that equilibrium.
Yes.
If you never know what it felt like to feel safe, then you wouldn't recognize, when you're engaging with people who are, creating this toxic type of environment, because we don't know what that feels like. But when you really had that time to be that version of yourself, to figure that out, you notice a lot faster when it's like, there's like a disturbance in the force. Like, no, something, I don't like that. I'm used to feeling peace like this. And now suddenly you came around and I'm feeling different. And that's not how I want to feel.
And here's the thing. When we're talking about emotional safety, again, keyword is emotional. Because I feel like when we hear safety, we'll be like, well, I know if a man makes me feel threatened. But we're talking about emotional threatened. Do you recognize when a man or a woman makes you feel emotionally threatened? Because it's different than, I feel like I'm in danger. They might harm me. Okay, but do you feel like I have to shut up about things I'm actually really passionate about because I feel like I might annoy them? Do I feel like I have to make myself small because he might not like me if I'm all me and I don't want to turn him off? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about emotional safety. When we're talking about emotional safety, do you feel safe to show up authentically as your full self?
Can you be vulnerable and like it's going to be used against you, or like you'll be attacked in that moment?
Do you feel like your emotional experience matters to them? That's recognizing how you feel around a person is just so important. Because sometimes recognizing like, he gives me butterflies, and then 6 months later you're like, this is anxiety. He's bringing anxiety. I thought this was butterflies, but this man makes me extremely anxious, and I don't like this.
But that's what comes with being in tune, right? Because you are I'm all for this checking in. This is why the mind-body connection, I'm here for it, because our bodies are aware of things before we are usually consciously aware of them, because we're always picking up on cues and signals and things, just, because we're creatures of this earth, and it's just our minds, collecting information about. You can feel uneasy before you know what is causing the disease. So being more in tune with that so that you can know how I feel around this person. Yeah, these butterflies because I'm nervous and because you give me anxiety, or am I feeling the warm fuzzies because that's, those types of things.
Yeah. So guys, hopefully you got something from this episode. As always, we're all going to have a new episode for you next Thursday. Be sure to follow Ashley on her pages and her social media sites. Ashley, go ahead and give that to them.
My brainchild, Parents Are People. You can follow that page on Instagram. It's Parents Are, the letter R, People. And then I also have Mickey Explores It All. That's MICKI.explores.it.all. And that's just my fun page. But you can follow either of those and check me out.
Yes. So also I will tag her pages in any of the Instagram posts today. So you don't have to worry about scribbling that down. It will be on the Instagram post. Follow us on Instagram at She Wolf Alchemy. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I ask that you please go to the review page and leave us a review. Leave us some review with words. Be sure to share your favorite episodes with family and friends. And other than that, you guys will hear the sound of our voice next Thursday. You guys have a good one.
Bye.